My guest today is Amel Derragui. Amel Derragui is a business and marketing coach, speaker, and podcast host at Tandem Nomads. She helps impact-driven solo entrepreneurs and small business owners to go from being overwhelmed to having clarity on where to focus their energy and how to attract clients with ease. After a career in advertising, she quit her job to join her husband abroad and launched her first business as a consultant in corporate communication for international organizations. 6 years later, she launched Tandem Nomads to address expat spouses' dual career challenges and help them create their own source of fulfillment and financial independence while living on the move. Amel regularly speaks on international stages and works with global organizations, providing workshops on entrepreneurship and marketing strategies that are mindful and aligned with the entrepreneur's purpose and lifestyle. You can find Amel's work and mission to empower women through entrepreneurship featured on various media such as Forbes magazine and Globally Living magazine. I warmly welcome Amel Derragui. Welcome to BrandsTalk.
Thank you so much, Bridget. I'm so excited to be here with you and all of those watching and listening.
Yeah, so I'm also excited having you today, Amel, because you have a really, really interesting journey and a personal story to tell, personal and also business story to tell. So you quit your job to join your husband abroad and launched your first business as a consultant in corporate communication for international organizations. And then also 6 years later, you launched Tandem Nomads to address these expat spousal dual career challenges and help them. So can you talk a little bit about your experience about going abroad, starting a business in another country? How was that for you? How did you find your way? And yeah, tell us your story.
Oh my God. So I'm going to try to make it short because I could expand in a long way. But for me, my career was always very important. I've always traveled the world since childhood because of my parents' job and then my studies, then my own career. And I just at some point was ready to settle down and went to France and started a career in advertising. And one day I went on holidays in Iran and met with the love of my life. And one of the things that I was like, I used to say always, I will never give up my career for a man or give up or even travel again. And yet, after long conversations and discussions, it took us about 6 months to still get engaged. And then I moved 1 year later after I met him to Iran and just changed my whole life. The one thing I knew is that I was not going to be able to continue my career while moving all the time because my husband has a job that leads him to move from a country to another very often. And I knew that going for a traditional career like I'd always dreamt of was not going to work, and entrepreneurship was the solution. And it's interesting that you asked me about how to do a business because what happened over the years, for me, it's about making sure that when I started working in Iran and started my business there, interestingly, the intercultural part was something to be aware of. For instance, I used to work to make presentations and keynotes and also apply for big projects where you have to be approved in such a different way than you would do it in Europe, obviously. And that was one of the learning part, as well as the currency, and I had to hire a team locally. So there was a lot of learning there. But it was interesting. I liked that part, and the challenge was actually exciting. But the biggest piece that was really challenging for me was when I realized that as soon as I started picking up, it took me about a year, 2 years to really start getting amazing clients and big clients. I came from not knowing anyone to having to build a business and clientship. So as soon as it started really picking up, I had to go. And that's something that I realized is not sustainable. At the end of the day, even a business is not going to allow me to have that continuous growth and sustainability while moving from a country to another. So very early on, I had realized that was going to happen, and I became very obsessed about how to make sure that my business is location independent. So that's why I said, when you ask me about how it is to make a business abroad, for me is that how to actually make sure that the business does not depend on where I am abroad. As if I always make sure to, if my business was always dependent on abroad, I would never be able to have consistency, growth and make the business sustainable. And that's what started this whole journey of being what I am today and launching Tandem Nomads, because over the years, it was before we had all these tools as well. It was in 2010, 11, where it was barely the start of MailChimp and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, it was really about how to make sure that the business is portable, location independent. And I could go deeper, but I'm going to wait for your lead here where you want to go. But that's basically what started what I'm doing now. And COVID was the second big shift as well, where it's interesting how I've been helping all my clients and making sure that they're business location independent, to now helping them that it's adapted to their lifestyle, no matter if they're expat spouses, no matter if they have to move abroad. The point is, how do we make a business aligned to our lifestyle? We all want to be mindful about how we spend our time and the quality time we have with our loved ones, but we also don't want to give up on our ambitions, on our goals, on making revenue, but also impact for the people we serve. It's just been a fascinating journey, and how things has built up to the point where we are now.
That's fascinating. Oh, I have a lot of questions from like cultural differences, and there are cultural differences. If you work globally, you have to understand them. What are the major problems that business owners have working globally? Could you touch on that very quickly?
It's not so much culture, actually. Yes, I believe that it's really important to be aware culturally, but if you're a global nomad, it becomes a second nature. Otherwise, I really advise to always get some help. There's some great interculturalists that can help you really learn about the local aspect. But the real challenge, as I said, is how to make sure that the business is sustainable no matter where you live, and if you choose to move from a country to another. And the real issue that I had to fight for was advocacy to change regulations for international people like us, like taxation. Yeah. It's a big issue. So I've been very early on, since 2015, talking a lot about this and talking to representatives in a higher level. So on top of my business, I also took it as part of my mission statement to actually create awareness around the regulations that are out there, to make sure that we can actually live in a more fluid world where there's a real globalization, because it's getting better, by the way. But for me, that was not globalization if you could not really transition from a country to another without having all these huge taxation hurdles that stop also a small business owner. When we're a big company and we can afford big advisors, that's fine. But when we're smaller companies, it's much more difficult to find the right people to support us.
So if you are a global nomad, let's say it like that, and you are traveling, you are married, you are on the move with your husband, because that was your niche that you started out with. Mm-hmm. So what are the major obstacles, other than the taxation processes and laws, for someone starting their business? What is it that makes us feel uncomfortable, makes us feeling overwhelmed, stressed out? Where do I start? So what is your advice here?
Yeah, so overwhelm can come from various different places, and it also depends on which stage you are, obviously. I guess if we're just starting a business, the overwhelm comes from not knowing, but also the learning curve. And for me, that first overwhelm, it's not so much about removing it physically, but it's more about shifting our mindset around the hurdle of learning new things and starting new things we don't know, but also being comfortable with not knowing what we don't know. And one of the things that the early stage clients that come to me who just are starting, they often want to know everything before they get started. And I always say, don't try to get to know everything. Start somewhere, and each step will actually lead you closer to the answers you're looking for. And the overwhelm comes from overthinking, comes from like looking at this huge mountain we have to climb instead of focusing on that first step we have to take, and to also look at the learning curve as actually like really being comfortable with getting uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's like we always say, the zone of growth is outside of our comfort zone, and there's so much that we have to do to stretch ourselves outside of our comfort zone when we get started. So I think that's what leads some people to either overwhelm or just giving up and not pushing through. And that's why it's important to surround ourselves with the right people so that we can really be in the right mindset to push through those first steps where we get to do things even if we don't know yet how where it's going to lead us. And I think that's really really important. Although I'm all about preparing, strategizing, planning, I do think that on top of the marketing aspect, the business aspects, the branding aspects, there's a lot to do in terms of mindset as well. So this is for me for the first early stages, but what happens as well with the clients that are more advanced that I work with, the overwhelm often comes from trying to do the old way things that are not fitting anymore to the type of business we have now that we've grown. That's the first thing. So I was talking about getting out of our comfort zone. Once we get out of that comfort zone, that zone of growth becomes the new comfort zone, right?
Exactly.
And we don't necessarily see that it's time to evolve, it's time to change, and we can't keep doing things like we used to do. But the other thing as well is that's very common to a lot of business owners, and trust me, even big ones, I used to work with big corporations as well, is to try to do too many things, is to try to spread ourselves thin because we don't know what really works, so we're going to try everything until it sticks. And I think that's also what gets people very, very overwhelmed. And the core of my work is to help people make sure that they choose the strategies that work for them. It's not just only about the market. Yeah, it's very important to know your market, to know your ideal client, to adapt your strategies to those, but it's also important to know how you function, what is the bigger vision, and how you can make sure that your business is aligned with your lifestyle and the type of purpose you have and the type of impact you want to make. So the whole work here, my key word in my business is really alignment, how to make sure to build strategies that are aligned with who you are. And I think this is really important. We have so many free resources out there now. And one of the things that I try to do is to not copy my own strategies or my own way of doing things into my clients' strategies. Is how can we make sure that we fit the strategy to what you do instead of trying to duplicate what other people are doing. And I think that's really important. The third one is consistency. Lack of consistency leads to overwhelm. And the reason why we're not consistent very often is because we haven't chosen those 2-3 key things to focus on. I often say when you don't have consistency, it's really hard to consistency in terms of our strategies, but also in terms of how we deliver our offers and product or service, consistency in our goals, in our strategy, in our vision. For me, that's another big keyword along the word of alignment, is how to make sure to be consistent so that we don't get overwhelmed.
Beautiful. I think it's really the key to first also look inside who I am. What can I offer? I think it's underestimated to get an idea of, people always look outside, so here and there, and what can I do? Mm-hmm. You really first have to have an understanding, what is your identity? And then how to communicate that to the world. And then also have the ideal client. And a lot of people want to do everything for everyone. As you say, we are doing too many things and then we're getting overwhelmed and then we can't have this consistency because we're doing too many things. So really focusing. And there's another overwhelm that to niche down to a specific ideal client is like the FOMO, the fear of missing out so many opportunities that are out there. And that's actually a thought pattern that is breaking, because it's actually the other way around. The more you niche down, the better you can serve someone, because you are the expert. And it also has something to do with the pricing, because whom they want to hire in a specific niche, the company that actually is the expert in that and not does everything.
And the expression says it's better to be a big fish in a small pond than a small fish in a big pond. And a lot of people just are afraid of missing out if they pick a small niche to start with, at least, because they feel like they will miss a lot of business. It's actually the other way around. The time it takes to become the go-to expert in that field will take much longer if you try to compete with people who are very generalist. You need, the more niche you are, the easier it will be for you to find your ideal client, but also for them to relate to you and to actually see you as deeper. But as we were talking about it before, I think niching down doesn't mean that you're condemned to just stick to that client the whole time. And I often say to my clients, it's one thing to focus your marketing on a niche it's another thing to actually welcome any other type of client. It's not because my marketing and my branding is focused on a certain niche that I'm not working with other clients. That's the first thing. And that's what happened to me with Tandem Nomads. As you said, I started with spouses of expats because I was all about women empowerment, helping women who gave up their careers for their families to not give up on their own ambitions. And for me, entrepreneurship was my way to support them. But what has happened is that I attracted a lot of clients who are not necessarily expat partners despite of that. And now my niche has grown, but I was able to do that only because I had focused on that niche and was consistent for, it's been 7 years now. I've been consistent with that niche for a long time. And over the years, the business evolves and a lot of shifts happens. But yeah, I think FOMO, the fear of missing out, is one of the things that overwhelms people. And niching down, I love that you brought that up. That's also one way to simplify things.
Yeah. 7 years is stacking up a lot of experience in a specific niche. And then you also have the freedom, the know-how, and that there might be other ideal clients out there that you can also serve. And then we also underestimate the world is changing and we have different trends coming up. And there might be something that we can pick up that is along the lines that what we're already doing. So we are growing also with the changes in the society, with the changes that are just part of our life.
And all the pivots we had to do in the past years is just
Yeah.
insane.
And the last years were very, very critical. A lot of things were happening also to our advantage because
Sure.
if you're an open person, if you want to grow, if you allow yourself to grow, then there's a lot of things that you can jump on and leverage. So you have also mentioned at the beginning, there is the traditional ways of doing things, also when it comes to marketing and branding. So what's your take on the new way of doing things?
I actually don't think there is new ways to do things. I actually go always back to the foundations. We keep adding tools, we keep adding apps, we keep adding technology. I don't know if you agree, but for me, the bottom line is always the same. Is how do you build a true authentic relationship with your community and your client base and your ideal client. And that, no matter what tool you use, no matter what fancy little funnel you come up with, that's the bottom line. I'm always worried when people get too attracted with the shiny objects, the latest strategy, the latest thing. Those are not gonna, and that's also another thing that overwhelms people, is to always say, oh, there's a new thing coming up, there's a new thing coming up. And I'm like, no, let's just stick to the foundation. If a new technology, if a new tool comes up and is helpful, then great. If not, don't forget the bottom line, which is that relationship with the ideal client. And I think that's really important. I don't know if you, in your question, if you thought of any new strategies particularly that you want to discuss of, because we could then take this to another as well mention.
Yeah, sure. The core is always the same. It's really all about touching base with the heart and the mind.
Correct.
So you want the customer to really live your brand and integrate your brand into everyday's life. It's really about what does the customer feel about you when he hears you, when she talks about you. This has to stick. But the way of how we communicate to the market, of what is important, what kind of tools are we using, how are we using messages, how we tailor messages. So I think there are new techniques out there that we are leveraging right now, because also the technical support is there to streamline things, to make it easier for us. So I was just wondering, because you've mentioned that this is the traditional way, what is there that you are leveraging at the moment?
That's a great question. Okay, so for me, one of the things is to realize how lucky we are to be in a time and a day and age where we have access to these technologies, right? And like you said, it's about improving the access to communication, for example. For me, one of the biggest thing that I think that new innovations have shifted more than in marketing, although all the marketing new shifts that we see, it's about the speed, like how to get faster to the client, how to communicate faster, how to respond faster. So these are all super cool tools. Like for example, now you can, for, I don't know, $50 a month, you can actually add a chat on your website so that you can answer a question immediately when somebody's on your website. This is extremely powerful, right? That you can actually be right on at the moment where the person reaches out to the website or any other platform you choose to put that kind of technology.
Just in time.
Exactly, being at the right time, the right place, and I think that's where the technologies are helping. Having more and more information and data about our ideal clients, this is also something very helpful. Although I am very mindful of data privacy and all things like that, which is something very important in Europe, not in other countries necessarily. But I do encourage my clients to be very mindful of data. But despite of that, there is still a lot of ways now where we can, with consent, get enough data about our clients so that we can serve them better. Also, everything that has to do with post, like the whole post channel, is like, how do we collect feedback? I think that's really important. A lot of people forget marketing and sales does not stop when you get the money in the bank. It actually starts there. The relationship with the audience and your clients starts at the moment. It does not start there, but it becomes even more powerful once you get paid. That's where the real work starts, delivering the value and making sure that the clients are happy. So I use a lot of technologies, for example, to have a CRM, a customer relationship management, to get feedback from my client, to be able to know consistently if we're in the right direction. So I think this is all amazing tools. But there's one area where it impacted me and my business and the clients I work with is in terms of business model. Today, thanks to technology, we can actually have so many variations of our business model to make it aligned with our lifestyle. Like, thanks to all the digital platforms, we can deliver any type of service or product. I started Tandem Nomads, like I said, 7 years ago, when I had to convince people that you could make any business portable, and I had to spend so much time to show them that it's possible. And I'm so grateful that since COVID, I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to spend, but the technology, even since COVID expanded on top of customer behaviors, customers are much more willing to consume certain things virtually compared to before. So I'm going to give you some examples because I think that always speaks. I, for instance, I have clients, for example, who are interior designers. How can you actually provide an interior design where you're supposed to go to people's houses? How can you do this virtually? Well, you can. I don't know if we have time to expand on that, but there's so many. Even I have another client who's actually a horseback rider, and she trained competition riders to train their horses so that they can not only have better performance, but also take care of the well-being of their horses better. They don't push them until their horses break. That also, we managed to turn it into something portable. I remember when I started my yoga, I used to have to convince my client, you can do this on Zoom. It's like, are you kidding me? Never. And then COVID came and now everybody's having yoga sessions on Zoom, right? So I think this is the one thing that excites me more on top of the marketing aspects in all the startups that are coming out to help us have better data and better communication with our ideal clients. I think the way we can actually start now building businesses in a creative way and think outside the box, it's just amazing. And this is what I'm really grateful for, the times we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many opportunities out there. And I think it's a question of how creative you are or how much you allow yourself to be creative, because you just need to think a little bit out of the box. Right. There are possibilities. And a lot of people are afraid of making this first move and getting out there and saying, this looks weird, let's not do that. And I think this hesitancy that is a huge hurdle we should actually overcome, because it's better to make this move and fail or learn a better way of how to doing it than not doing it at all. So it's really about this boldness, being courageous, getting out there, do the steps, and things will fall into its place. So once you start your walk, your journey, you're gonna figure it out. And I think that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. And now with all this technology out there, it helps us to be visible. It helps us to start this journey in a way that we just have more opportunities out there. Yeah, it's easier to start it.
And that's another thing that I like about what you're saying. In technical terms, it's barriers to entry into the market. Before, to start a business, we needed so much more resources, so much more capital to be able to start a business. And that's what I used to say to my clients. I'm using the brands and these technologies at the time only big companies could access to. Now we can have an email marketing platform that's so affordable and even free. For instance, like this is the basic of online marketing, right? To have an email marketing like MailChimp or ConvertKit or things like that. But just it's so much more cheaper, and but also the technology is more user friendly and more intuitive. So there's not too much a technical hurdle to get to learn all of that. So I think it's important to remind that anyone can start now. You don't need anymore a lot of money, and you don't need a lot of technical knowledge to be able to start. Just get started.
Yeah, just get started and inform yourself. It's all about knowledge, and that needs to be in place in order to start.
And grid.
Yeah.
And grid.
Absolutely. Yeah. What are other, let's say we have talked about some challenges and mistakes that people make when they start their own business. Are there other mistakes that you see very often in terms of branding?
Oh, in terms of branding, I love that you always talk about being authentic, right? I think this is also the core of everything you do with your own clients. And that's something I really share with you, is like starting by really being clear on what you want. Being clear about, it's not just about starting a business. If you decide to go into business, the goal is to be there for the long haul. And you can't be in it for the long haul if you're not aligning your business with who you are. This is really, which means you need to know who you are, what you want, what kind of impact you want to make, what kind of growth you want. It happened to me to have clients, for example, where we decided you need to actually shift the type of business you want. You don't want actually a one-woman show, if I'm hearing well. What you want is a business that actually, where you're not necessarily the face of the business. Oh, and from that realization, we shifted the whole business model in marketing. But it's amazing how when we know what we want, we can actually choose the right strategies. That's why I said it's not only about the market, because we've traditionally been taught to always focus on the market, which I think is important. But alignment is also about both sides of that relationship. So knowing what we want is really important, having clear vision. But also, I don't know if you've seen that, I've seen a lot of people spend a lot of time at the beginning to get started, to get a brand name, to get a logo, to get a website. And this is something that I know it helps visualize. When we have a logo, when we have a name that's fancy, it helps us picture where we're going. But sometimes a lot of people spend so much time on that before they get even started. I'm like, you can actually start a business without a logo, without a website. You can. I always encourage people to start without it, because then you would have had a proof of concept before you start spending time and money into something that might not actually be the right fit for you. So I think that's also another thing that I would get started without having to have all those fancy things.
Yeah, I think that is really, really a crucial point. I see that also all the time. It's something that you need, of course, but further down the road. And the interesting thing is, if people start with the logo and the name first, very often they have to rebrand once they figure out what they really want and who they want to serve and what their vision is and what their higher purpose is, let's say it like that, why they are doing what they are doing. Once they figure that out, then they see that this is not going in line anymore. This is not in sync. So they have to start all over again. You're losing a lot of time. You have invested a lot of time and effort into something that is not sustainable. And starting early on with actually figuring out who you are and what you want to achieve and what your vision is, it makes it easier. That's actually where branding starts. Yeah, that's the mindset.
Test your product, yeah, exactly, and testing the product or service. Even if we're just a consultant, I used to call myself just a consultant because I look at all the startups and comparing to that. But even at the service level, we can create a small offer that we can put out to the world. Just see how people react to it before we start going fancy. Yeah. I think this is testing and running a pilot is really important before we go any further.
Yeah,
the answers come by doing. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no. But it's what you're talking about is the so-called minimum viable product, something that is there that you develop on the go, that evolves on your journey, and it becomes better and better and better, and not waiting until something is perfect Yeah, it's never gonna be
Exactly.
perfect, and it's also a waste of time, I would say. I also feel guilty about that.
Yeah.
80% are more than enough. The rest of the 20% nobody sees it. You're the only one who is like bothering about the rest of the 20%, but other people will say, what's wrong with it? They don't see it. Yeah, so we really
Yeah.
have to understand that as well. All
Totally.
right. Yeah. Emil, is there anything else that you would like to share with us? Any specific offer that you have right now that you wanna share in this?
Yeah, so my last word for all of you, if you're listening, thank you for listening, by the way, is I want to share the motto that motivates me because this journey of entrepreneurship is full of ups and downs, and it's not, like in French we say, a long, calm river. It's full of ups and downs, and the grit and the clarity on where we want to be in the long term is what will help us get there. But also, my motto is turning challenges into opportunities, and I think every challenge can lead to an opportunity. It's all about making sure to have that clarity. And if you don't have that clarity, at some point, get the help you need. Get the support you need. As I just received a video from a client yesterday who was like, you just saved me 2-3 years in 2 days.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in having that support and you want to like just sit down and crack the key important components of your business so that you can get the clarity and run with it, you can reach out to me and we could start with a strategy session, and then if we need more we can discuss more. So I can share with you the link to the strategy session if you want. If you go to tandemnomads.com services, you'll find all the information there.
Yeah, and you share also a lot of information in your podcast, the Tandem
Yes.
Nomads. Yeah. Would you
Yes.
like to tell us why you're doing it? Yeah, who it is for?
So the podcast is for all solo entrepreneurs and small business owners who want to create marketing strategies and business model that really is aligned with who they are and their lifestyle. Like how do you keep your ambitions really high while making sure that you don't break yourselves? And I work a lot with women as well, and we didn't talk too much about that, but for me, one of the people who are the most overwhelmed in entrepreneurship are women because they have so much overload of a lot of things to do, and it's all how to make on top of the business, how to make sure to actually build our support system as well, including in the professional field but also at home. We talk a lot about that as well. But for me it's all about breaking the glass ceiling without being broken, without breaking ourselves, and that's really important. So the podcast is really all about marketing, business, and mindset to growth and to impact, to making a real impact.
I love what you're saying, breaking the glass ceiling without breaking ourselves. I think that
Yes,
is
I
really
think,
important. Yeah, how to
yeah.
do that, to go past, go beyond it in full strength and owning it
Yes.
and allowing ourselves to do it without being overwhelmed. Here we go
Yeah.
again,
And you say something that I keep saying as well all the time is living up to our full potential.
right?
For me that's really important, and I think we share that a lot, you and I. Like we really want our clients to know their potential and to live up to it without having to sacrifice all the other lives areas of their lives.
Yeah, and we don't
Yeah.
even realize how much potential we have. And also
Correct.
on the way, that's what I feel like over a year, or if you look back what you have achieved, and you see there's even more potential in there. Yeah, so it's you're growing. You are when you broaden your so-called comfort zone, you're going out of
Yeah.
your comfort zone, then you make it your comfort zone, your new comfort zone, and then you're elevating out of that again. There is so much more potential you would never see if you're not starting this journey.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen to that.
Amen to that. All right, Emil, I would like to do some rapid fire terms with you.
Oh,
This,
good. I was not prepared for this.
oh yes, it's really easy.
Okay,
Are you ready for the first term? All right,
go.
digital,
Possibilities,
mindset,
growth,
global,
impact,
women empowerment,
change,
and brands. What does branding, what do brands mean to you?
relationship.
Beautiful. That's what it is all about, right? Emil, where can listeners find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so if you want to get in touch with me, go to tandemnomads.com. And I also have a free guide to help you actually learn the key pillars to build the foundations of your business, whether you're starting or you already started or struggling to be consistent. I share with you my 3 C's: clarity, consistency, conversion, and some practical exercises to apply to your business. So if you're interested, you can download it on tandemnomads.com/3C. And when you download it, you'll get also my email. Don't hesitate to email me if you have any questions, or tag me underneath this video. I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn as well, or on Facebook, wherever you work. So it'll be great to connect. Okay,
Wonderful, wonderful. Emil, thank you so much for being my guest on BrandsTalk today.
Thank you. This was fun.
It was so delightful. Thank you for all your nuggets of wisdom that help us go from this overwhelm there to be really aligned with our entrepreneurial purpose and the lifestyle that we want to live. Thank you, Amel.
My true pleasure. Thank you so much. It was so much fun. You did such a great job with this conversation. I can't wait to stay in touch.
Thank you so much, Amel. Thank you.